Welcome back to the Humble Rising podcast. I am your host, Adivi Vargas, and I have a treat for you again today, which is a conversation with Trinnette Faint, who is a writer. She is an award-winning actress, model, author, and creative entrepreneur whose work spans storytelling, filmmaking, and community building. She's the founder of Floor 51 Productions and Chez Faint, and the author of 2 novels, Collette's Caleb and MidCoast star. She is a lifelong creative with a dynamic, multidisciplinary career. She is committed to bold and emotionally resonant and honest stories that center women living fully, living honestly, freely, and on their own terms. And her career reflects that. It's a blend of reinvention, artistry, and as you will learn in our conversation, deep trust. Most recently, Trinnette wrote, produced, co-directed, and stars in her short film called Party Pants. It is a sharp, heartfelt exploration of aging, of identity, and the expectations placed on women. The film has already earned her the Best Actress Award from the Berlin Indie Film Festival and continues to position her as a storyteller, offering depth, complexity, nuance, humor, and a refreshing honesty about the realities of womanhood. And in my conversation with Trinnette, she takes us through her very non-linear journey, her path from navigating racism and impossible beauty standards as a model in the fashion world, to working as Matt Damon's assistant, to building a career in photography, writing, and acting, and ultimately filmmaking. This story that she shares with us is a master class in staying open and following your curiosity and allowing one experience that feels aligned, allowing that one experience to lead to the next one, even when the outcome doesn't look like what you could have imagined. We explore the power of saying yes. What does that mean in real time? We explore what is it like when things don't go the way that you planned, and what can happen when you allow yourself to move forward despite rejection. You don't let rejection define you. Trinnette shares how leaving a toxic tech job, surviving personal loss, experiencing grief, and investing in herself financially, emotionally, creatively, all the things, led her to reclaim her voice and step fully into her artistry in her 50s. So, for any woman out there, anyone at all, actually, you don't have to be a woman, for any person who has ever questioned their path, felt behind, or wondered whether it's too late to begin again, this is the conversation you need to hear right now, because this episode offers both grounding and revelation that you can choose differently at any time. Trinnette's journey is the reminder you need that the life you're meant to live often sits on the other side of a single brave step. With that, here is my conversation with Trinnette. Trinnette, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. I'm so thrilled and excited about our conversation.
Nice to meet you, Audrey. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Okay, Trinnette, so I want people to get to know you a little bit better. So share with us your story, and you can make this long or short, but there's just so much richness in your story and so many things you've done, and I find it to be so inspiring, and I just would love you to share more of your journey with those listening.
Oh my gosh, my story. Okay, well, I've had lots of lives like a cat. So 9, 10, 11 of them, take your pick. Oh gosh. So I'm originally from Joliet, Illinois. I live in Boston. I went to college here and stuff. So been my favorite city to live in the States. And I am a writer, producer, actor, and creative entrepreneur. I'm debuting my short film Party Pants this weekend in Boston. Yay, Party Pants! It's a fun tale, and I have a networking events company called Chez Faint, where I bring together entrepreneurs and creatives for networking over these small, intimate dinners and such in different cities. I'm a novelist. I've published 2 novels, Colette's Caleb and MidCoast Star. I'm a published essayist, and gosh, yeah, I think that's one strain of my life.
But tell us more about how this evolution happened, because so many people feel like they have to be one thing or 2 things. But
Yeah.
you really expanded into like multiple areas. How was that journey like, and how did you do that?
I honestly don't even know how I did it. It's all felt like very authentic to me, and I've followed my curiosity for a lot of it. When I was growing up, I started modeling as a teenager at like 16 in Chicago, and that was kind of my first foray into storytelling and seeing that the world was bigger than Joliet, where I was from. And, this was back in the 80s. Oh my God. Uh, it was a different time.
Listen, the 80s, Trinnette, I have this 80s R&B soul mix on my Spotify. It is so good. It's so good. I'm like, come on, I say what music is today. Why was there music back then?
I know. Like every time I make a playlist or something, it's all like 80s and 90s and some 70s. I don't even know what's on the air today or if there's even radio anymore. No.
It's very, very limited radio, yes.
Yeah. So starting out like in the fashion business as a teen model, your goal is like to go to Paris and do all these things. And I did that after high school. I had a truck scholarship to a school in Illinois that I declined so that I could go pursue this career. And, I never had the commercial success that I probably would have had today if I were starting out, because back then the business was just super racist. They would just flat out tell me they didn't want a Black girl. They didn't need one. Clients didn't ask for one. If it wasn't that, it was that I was too fat, they would come out and tell me. And I'm 6'1", and at the time I was like 121 pounds. So it's just like skin and bones, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
ruthless. So there was basically all these things I couldn't change about myself, and I didn't really want to change them about myself either. It's like, this is me, take it or leave it thing. So because that career or that path, high fashion path, didn't work out, I ended up going back to college after a couple of years of like really giving that the hard push. But I just figured that is not a sword I'm going to die on, like making myself anorexic and doing all these crazy things. So when I went back to college, the school I went to Emerson, they have a program in LA and they have a program in Europe, in the Netherlands. So I did my semester abroad in the Netherlands, and that was my first, well, no, I'd been to Paris before as a young model, but doing a semester and traveling all over the place and like really studying art history to the degree that we were studying it, and literature, and doing all these things, it just really opened my mind up to a bigger world and culture, like beyond fashion. And then after I did that program, my last semester, I went to our LA program. And while there, it was obviously like LA, like the home of the entertainment business, at least back then it was. I just was exposed to more different types of culture, film, TV, screenwriting, like all those sorts of things. And they all just kind of took root in me. And the first real job I got in the business was as Matt Damon's assistant. I got that job after a couple of years out of college. I had a really rough start, like right out of school. I couldn't find a job. Like it was crazy. But I ended up getting this job working for Matt, and it being around him, like someone like obviously like very successful and creative and highly functioning and all these things, and being on film sets, that initially spurred creativity in the form of photography. So I was hanging out with like set photographers. And after I finished working with him, I went to photography school for a year. He funded my first portfolio and gave me my first camera, my really nice camera and stuff. So I knew that I wanted to do something else than be someone's assistant. I wanted to like really start expressing my own creativity. That led to me, I won the Judge's Choice Award or something for one of my pieces of photography. And there was an exhibit in New York that my photo was in. So there was like all these things that were happening. And I moved out to Colorado for a while. I had some friends there and I worked at a newspaper there in the photography department. And I was able to shoot all these events at a theater at this like radio show. And Mavis Staples was somebody that I photographed there. And I was doing modeling still. Like I've always continued to model, but it just wasn't high fashion stuff. It just became more of like a commercial model and just picked it up like wherever I could. So all everything that I was doing kind of like opened the door to like the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I just stayed open to it all. And eventually I would win Harper's Bazaar's Fabulous at Every Age contest. I was their first winner. And because of that, I had won all this money. It was sponsored by Estee Lauder. That I opened up my first online beauty store that was an inclusive place for women of color, especially to get, skincare, hair care, all the things in one place because I was so discriminated against as a young model, as a Black model, and there was no products for us back then, not like today. The market, it was just very, very different. So, as a teenager, I had this idea that I would love to have a store, a brick and mortar, because the internet didn't exist then, a brick and mortar that included all these products, like everything from like nylons to band-aids that were like the right colors for us, these things that exist on the market now, but they were not commonplace then. So I had this store and it was an online thing. I used my money for that, my winnings from Estee Lauder. And I ran that for a couple of years, but it was just like too hard to compete with like a Sephora or something because I was doing like everything. But one great thing that came of it was Emerson had asked me back to speak to the students at this entrepreneurial symposium that they were having. And in that conversation, when I was in the keynote, I had mentioned that I one day wanted to work for Bobbi Brown for her brand because she went to Emerson also. And when I was an undergrad at Emerson, we didn't have a gym, which sounds kind of crazy because I played basketball for a year. We used to practice at the Mass Art Gym, which is like wild. But when I went back and was doing this keynote, I guess 10 years later, maybe whatever it was, there was now a Bobbi Brown gym that her and her husband had donated to the school and created. So this event was in this gym. So I had said, oh, it's not lost to me that now I'm in this Bobbi Brown gym. It felt like this full circle kind of moment. So one of the executives from the school came up to me after the keynote and said, oh, have you met her yet? And I said, I'd love to one day though. And they said, oh, look at that. The alumni department. Oh, okay, cool. So they reached out to Bobbi, and like a week later, I was down in Soho in front of Bobbi Brown, like my icon, right? I don't like what, right? And she was just like so nice and so open, and she basically like hired me as a freelance makeup artist. She's like, oh, have you ever thought about doing makeup? And I said, oh, well, I have money. I can't go back to school and like take these classes at Emerson now because now there's like this makeup program as a result of her having gone there. And she goes, oh, no, I'll get you trained. You can like work for me. And I just thought that was the most generous thing that I've ever heard of anybody doing. Like, here's this woman with this massively successful brand. And then there's me with my online beauty store selling products, not selling her brand, but like smaller products. And obviously she had no reason to be threatened by me, but but it was just like super generous. So she trained me, well, not her personally, but she got me trained and I started working for years as a freelance Bobbi Brown artist. And obviously that is another form of creativity and opened up other doors. And it was just like this really positive experience that I had as a result of that. And she was just this like powerful person, like this wonderful mentor in my life. And the best piece of advice that she had ever given me, she was like, just be open. Like, you don't know what opportunity is going to come out of anything. Just be open. And I was like, okay. And I just, from then on, proceeded with my life being open. and following curiosity about different things, which has more or less like led me to where I am today. Yeah.
But it is one thing leading to another. You saying yes, right? And you
Right.
saying, okay, I'm going to try it. And then allowing things to happen for you. I'm curious, were there things that you did want that you didn't get? Like you were open to opportunity, you were excited about something, but it didn't work out. And then you kind of, most people, they panic a bit or they're like, what am I going to do now? Or
Yeah.
they can't see the next step that clearly.
Right.
So did that happen for you? And when did that happen? How did you manage that?
Well, the biggest thing that I wanted was a commercially successful high fashion modeling career. And it just didn't happen. And after a while, I just had to make peace with the fact that it was not going to happen. Like that business is just rooted in youth and being deathly thin, which I am not.
Yeah.
So
You were thin,
it's
so thin.
crazy. However, no experience is bad experience. And after the time, right before I moved to Colorado, when I finished working with Matt, I lived in Maine for a summer. It's just like weird how life just will give you what you need. And
Yes.
yeah, so I moved up to Camden, Maine for a summer because I'd worked for Matt for a couple of years and it was fantastic, but it was like completely hectic and I didn't have like my own life or control of my own schedule and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
As I wouldn't expect to, but I kind of wanted my own thing after a while. So I left, I went to photography school. I just kind of took a break and I moved to Maine. I had a friend there from college. She's like, oh, just come up for the summer, just hang out. And I don't know if you've been up to Maine in the summer, but it is fantastic.
Beautiful.
Gorgeous, right? So I got this waitressing job. I knew someone whose father owned this restaurant. And, they gave me a job and I rented a room in a house a mile outside of town for $300 a month. This was predating Airbnb. Like it was a radical idea.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. It's radical back then. You're like, wait, why are you renting a room
In a stranger's house, right? But it was like the absolute best experience. So for that summer, I was just serving up lobsters and fried clams or whatever it was and dark and stormies. And nobody knew that I'd like worked in the business because, especially in LA, first thing people ask you is like, oh, what do you do? And you try to just be vague. I would be like, oh, I just, work in production. Like, 'cause everybody works in production in LA. And well, who do you work for? And like, just people just keep picking. And so finally, I would say, oh, I work for Matt, his assistant. And then, oh my God, well, I just have this script that I've been trying to get to him, blah, blah. Can you get it to him? And it's like this whole thing. So your defenses like really go up. And I built like this complete wall around me because you never know like what people's motives are and all these things. So when I went to Maine, it was fantastic because nobody knew any of that. And I was just there to serve up their lobster rolls. It was great. Let me tell you, I went from like flying in private planes to just like getting a refill on your iced tea. And it was glorious. But during that time, one day I show up at work and the hostess, who I had not had many ships with crossover, so I didn't know her very well, she comes up to me and she's like, oh, my mom is editor-in-chief of this knitting magazine. And I told her about you because they're looking for models and they would love to have like more Black models. Would you be interested? So I chatted with her mom, and that began a years-long relationship with Interweave Press, and I did all these modeling jobs for them. So I became like this knitting model.
I saw that on your website. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Money is money, a job is a job. But the people were so incredibly friendly and nice, and I was so warmly accepted into this space where I had not been accepted in the high fashion space. And I'm built like a high fashion model. I am 6'1". And I grew up doing runway stuff in Chicago, like the whole thing. I was a size 0 forever. How did I get skinnier than that? What did they suggest I do? It was like retarded. So I was never accepted there, but the knitting people like accepted me with like open arms. So I started doing all these jobs. And then just like randomly, when I moved to Colorado, their headquarters for the magazine was in Colorado. So I was able to continue doing that work while I was in Denver. And I mean, I worked for them for years. I did like so many different things. And one of the women that I met during that time, she is the woman who had reached out to me over COVID. I hadn't seen her in about 15 years. And she asked me kind of where I was in the world because she was working on Vogue knitting and if I could come and shoot for them in Maine. And this was early days of COVID, and I was in California at the time. And so I was like, hell to the yeah.
Vogue. It's Vogue.
So I suited up in my like that space suit, whatever it was, early COVID, that thing. Girl, I put that on 10 masks or whatever, and I
Do what you got to do.
like it was like two other people on that flight to Boston.
Because they're like, I'm going to make it there. And I'm fully protected. I got all my stuff on.
That was when nobody was flying. And so I flew, got to Boston, and then rented a car, whatever it was, drove up to Maine, and we shot this thing. And I had no idea that, you know, I was going to end up on the cover. And so that happened. And I was, gosh, I was late 40s then, I guess, right? When that happened? Yeah, this was 21 or something like that. And I could not believe that from way earlier, that time in Maine, all these years later, opened up the door to this Vogue knitting cover. Like, it was crazy. So that's part of like this being open thing. And that hostess that connected me with her mom back then, she has since gone on to have a very good acting career. And she's been in films with like Meryl Streep and guys, I think she was on Masters of Sex on Showtime, I think that show was. All these different things. So I would have never known that that would have been the outcome from that time. So again, it's just staying open and being nice to everybody. Like when you do have opportunities, because you never know when something else is going to come up and somebody's going to reach out to you out of the blue to say, hey, can you come do this? Are you interested? And, you know, that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Trinnette, but you know what I find so fascinating is that it's because you tell the story of how Bobby Brown told you stay open. So you said, okay, I'm going to do that. But it seems like you were doing that before then in your own way. And so I'm wondering, was there someone in your life when you were younger or I don't know, family, someone who you knew who was doing something that seemed quote unquote unconventional at the time? And then you said, huh, that sounds really cool. I don't want to go to work at like an office desk job. I don't want to do what maybe other people might want to do for their career to be quote unquote successful. I feel like I'm different and I have something different to offer and I'm going to see where that goes. Like, was that cultivated in you as a child or do you know anyone who's doing this? Because it seems like it can't come out of nowhere.
Well,
or maybe it did, but you tell me.
I didn't know anyone that was doing something off the charts like I was trying to do.
Okay.
I will say that my mom had always supported me. She always said, oh, you can do whatever, you know. I'd never had any kind of pushback or that's a dumb idea or da 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 da. Like she was always supportive. You know, even back like in high school, she would show up at all my games. Like, you know, it's that kind of really loving support that you take for granted as a kid. But then when it's time for you to step out into the world, you feel very supported and loved because you've had that support. So I think that's a lot where it came from. Like she would go with me to Chicago. She sent me to modeling school. I think I was 15 maybe. And, you know, that was a piece of chunk of money out of her pocket that she probably could not afford to do as a single parent back then, but she did it. And we would take the train up to the city. And then eventually she started letting me take the train by myself. So that was her way of letting me kind of get my wings and get street smart and all these things, which was an excellent foundation for when I would go off into the world on my own. So by the time like I went to Paris and then New York after that, where I was with the runway division of Ford for a bit until I just couldn't fit into the clothes because I was so tall. Like the problem was like I was so tall. It was just like one thing after another. I was already like pretty hip to the streets, if you will. because she had given me that leeway and, kind of that springboard. So I think just because of what she did for me in those terms, it just showed me that I could do anything and that I shouldn't be afraid. I'm an only child, and I can remember there were times like I wanted to go do something and like no one was around, sort of thing. So I'd be like, well, I guess I just won't go to the movies or whatever it was. And she said, you had better get used to doing things by yourself. If you want to go do something, you just go do it. Don't wait for anybody. And I was like, okay. I was like, I mean, by myself. You're not coming either. Like, I go by myself. But it was like such a great lesson and something that every mother should be telling their daughters. Like, do not wait for people. Do not wait for anybody. Go do what you want to do. So those little things, like just going to the mall by myself or going to the movies, like it all fostered this like independence that I would then take out into the world. And that I just basically like wasn't afraid of really of anything and anyone. And being this tall, if anything, I think I intimidated people more than I was intimidated by them. So that was another blessing. So, I just always knew that I wanted to be a fashion model, and we get these magazines every month. Was it Sassy, 17?
My God, back then, way back then. But Jeanette, this is when the magazines, there were so many of them because again, there was no internet, there wasn't social media. So you got everything from like radio, magazines, newspapers.
And they were so good. They were good. It was like Sassy, Cosmo, for better or worse, Cosmo,
I remember Cosmo as a kid. Cosmo was like the mature.
Yeah, it was definitely, he wanted to learn some things, like Cosmo. But I used to get all those and I would read them. And, even the stories in them, different feature articles about people everywhere doing things in life, it just kind of opened me up to this other world. It was a form of escape from this small place where I was from as a student athlete, which I loved. That was a thing. Illinois, you can be an athlete or you just go to school locally or something, whatever. But I just kind of saw this bigger thing through these fashion pages, so the fashion world did not give me the career that I wanted, but it gave me like the permission to dream about a different type of life and showed me what else was out there that I could go get if I was not even going to be in like their pages, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's definitely like a pathway and something inside you was ignited, and not everybody gets that, right? Regardless of industry, where you see something and you're like, something more is out there for me. It's not going to be where I am right now, but I know something is out there for me and I'm meant to do something different than what I've seen because I see these magazines and I see these other people doing this and there's something connecting me to that and I need to go figure that out and find that connection.
Yeah. I mean, even when I first came to Boston, I had been in Paris for a bit and then I was in New York and I had met this guy on a train. He was American. And long story short, we ended up hitting it off.
Wait, do you speak French?
I'm studying French now.
Say you were talking to him. Were we talking in French or English?
Oh, we were talking English.
I was like, oh my gosh, you speak French too. What can she do?
The French thing it's a little rough, but
it's a beautiful language. It's not, I don't think it's the easiest to learn.
It's not. The summer in France is about summer, like studying French and stuff. So anyway, so I met this guy on this train and we start dating. He lived in Boston and I was still living at home at the time. And I eventually left home and I went to New York. This was after Paris. There was a jumble of years I was just kind of popping around. And things were going so poorly in New York because I wasn't like booking because, the black, the tall, this, that, and the other, that I decided to come up to Boston just for like the summer to just kind of recalibrate because I was so skinny. I remember I went home for Christmas or some holiday or something. And my cousin, she lifted up my arm and she's like, oh my God, are you anorexic? And I said, no, I'm just living in New York. And I said it as if that was like the most normal thing in the world. And then later I was like, oh, I got to make some changes here. because I couldn't afford to eat. I was like living in a women's hotel. I was only eating when I went to work because I had this waitressing job. So if I was on the schedule for 3 days a week, like that's what I would eat, because I had no bite, sort of thing. So I came up here just to spend the summer to get my bearings. And I ended up staying for like 5 years. And at this restaurant that I was working at, I met all these fabulous people.
Wait, Trinnette, what was the restaurant called?
Oh, it was the Blue Wave.
So where is that?
Is in Back Bay on Berkeley.
It's still there.
No, it's
still
not.
there.
It's no longer there. It's right next to Cub Cafe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's on that others on the Berkeley side. So I met all these fabulous people there. This one woman I met, she's still my best friend today. And I met these professors that would come in from Emerson all the time, and I would wait on them. And that's how I learned about the school, because we got to talking, and they're like, "Oh, you should come look at Emerson," blah blah blah. Because I was thinking, well, I got to go back to school, because at this point it had been like 3.5 years, because I was running around chasing this modeling thing. So I ended up going to Emerson, and then my world opened up after that. And I could have ended up at any restaurant in Boston, but I ended up at that one. And I worked alongside people who had gone to Emerson, and these particular professors, head of these departments, that would come in all the time. And I just got to know them. And so that's how I learned about the school, and that completely changed course. Now, if I would have taken that track scholarship and done that route in Southern Illinois, the outcome would have been very different. I can say that.
I mean, there was something, I just think it's just so rare today for those who have the opportunity to go to college, but who feel called to do something else. I find it to be just rare, even if you're not that college crossroads, if you're in your career and then you're 35, 40, and you're like, you know what, this isn't for me. Like, I want to try something else. There's so much fear and there's so much pressure from messages you get. For many people, it is their parents too, but just society about like what success is supposed to look like and what path is supposed to look like. And we talk a lot about external markers of success, which for a lot of people includes, and we don't talk about this enough, but includes marriage and children.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It includes, it's like, no. You do this, you get a job, you get married, you have children, and then you just do your job, and then that's what you do. And that's success. And you have a house. You have to have a house, and you have to have this, and you have to have that. And I'm wondering if you ever came up against that. If you ever felt like, oh, I'm not doing what others are doing. Like if you have friends who are kind of doing the more traditional, quote unquote, traditional path, and you felt like, oh, should I be doing that instead? Especially when you have that 3-year period or 4-year period in New York, and where you're like, oh, this is not happening the way that I wanted to. And then you went to Boston, and then you're like, oh, Emerson. I wonder, but right before then, did you have that, like those doubts about your own path and what you were called to do?
I didn't. I didn't. And it was probably because I was in this other world that most people just can't understand.
True.
A high fashion sort of space, even though I wasn't booking, but I was still in it.
Yes.
Having gone to Paris first before I was in New York how was I, 19 or something? Like nobody was doing that. Like nobody where I came from was doing that. Cindy Crawford, of course. She's from Illinois. She's from,
I didn't know.
yeah, she's from DeKalb, I think. She went to Northern, or she was planning to go to Northern University, Illinois University. But for the most part, there was no one really doing that, and no Black women that I knew that were really doing that. So I always just, when you get that bug, is like, Paris, oh my God, j'adore.
I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you.
So I never felt like I should be kind of settling into this different type of life. And, Emerson is such a creative school that it encourages you to really kind of get out there and make your own mark and stuff anyway. And then, going straight from that to the semester abroad and traveling around Europe, like I knew I was on my path. I was like, I am not this and nothing by running home and settling into a marriage that I don't want. Like that never occurred to me. And then being in LA, again, in this completely different type of world, type of space, like I was not in like a conventional kind of job is not a conventional sort of business. And I guess the things that I was doing, like, you really have to have like a level of freedom and flexibility to do these things. And that was me, like, full stop. Like, I could run around, hop on a plane, go here, go there, do all these things. So I never felt that. Now, I will say, when I turned 30, I remember that I had that kind of existential crisis and breakdown.
Okay.
It was like, oh my God, I don't have this, I don't have that. Like, I was living in New York and, with an old friend of mine, and we had a great apartment and stuff, but didn't have like those trappings and those things that society was supposed to have. And I was like sobbing. At my best friend, her brother got married on my birthday. And at the wedding, I was just like outdone. I just could not stop crying. I just couldn't. Plus, I had on this suit, this white Burberry suit that I bought in Greece. And for some reason, like, the pants kept ripping into that. So that did not.
It's like, and my Burberry pants. Yeah, I want some Burberry pants.
So, but that was an awful, awful birthday. But then after that, like the next year, I turned 31. I was like, what was I so upset for? Like, last year. And then I've never felt that way since. I mean, I suppose every woman goes through that at some point, especially those of us who are not married and have children and stuff, or not where we think we should be. So I had it at 30, and I just turned 54 last week, and I've yet to have it again.
Oh, women that have children and are married, same existential crisis. It just looks different. But it's still I think there is, and mothers don't talk about it enough because there's a lot of shame around this. But I have 3 children, and I talk about that in this podcast with certain guests about, like, sometimes you're just like, I quit. Like, I quit. I mean, you can't quit, but sometimes you want to run away. Like, you just do. I always say that I think we're taught to want to be mothers, but not everybody should be a parent. Not everybody should be a parent. Some people are not willing to, or they're like, you know what? I like my freedom too much. I like being able to do what I want. And, because for me, if you're outsourcing all of your child's care, you're never home, I'm like, then you don't want to really be a parent, and that's okay, but at least admit that. So I do think mothers, especially those who, even if you stay home and take care of your kids, or you have a big career, I still feel like there's this moments of like, what is happening to me? What has to me? And I think it's still challenging, but I think we all have, it's not the same experience, but a similar, like, what is happening with my life? What am I doing with my life? What have I done with my life? Oh my God. Like that knees to the floor moment, or that, and my pants are ripping. I'm like, what's happening? Everything's falling out at the same time. It's like when it rains, it pours. Yes. Like, very relatable.
Yeah. I mean, I never, ever had the desire to want kids. For me, it was always, if it's not 100% yes, then it's
no. I love that. That's a great filter for making decisions. 100% yes is a no.
And there were times where I thought, oh, I could see maybe having a child. And I had partners occasionally who had children, so that was fine. But like, it was just never 100%. And I saw the way my mom, raised me, and like, as an adult, I was like, oh my God, that must be expensive, because
yes, all right.
Yeah, she like, oh my God, I used to eat so much. Like, people used to threaten to call child services on her because they didn't think she was feeding me because it was so skinny. And she would be like, you understand, like, I can't keep food in.
You just have a fast metabolism.
And so I would think about that. I was like, some days I was like, I can't afford to like take care of myself. How am I gonna take care of someone else? And maybe this is because I grew up like without a father in the home, that like I didn't see like that unit, so it wasn't something that I aspired to. I aspired to a life of, freedom and doing all these things. But I also thought, well, if I'm gonna have a child, I better be ready to do it myself, even if I get married or something, because like, what if he leaves? What if he's not around? I can't afford to do that. So it was never a yes. And plus I was running around doing these things that are not necessarily conducive to like having a family so early on. But it's really funny what you say, that that even if you're a parent, like, you still have the same crisis, because that is key to what my short film Party Pants.
Yes, let's talk about it. Let's talk about Party Pants, because I told you right before we started to record, I told you that I saw the trailer, and there's this moment where it's a hilarious trailer. For those who are listening, I'm going to link it to the show notes. You have to check this out. Check out this film. But I watched the trailer and I laughed so hard when you said, because you're acting in it, you said that women are expected to be 35 perpetually, and it's not, and then men get to be fat and get to do all these things, and we can't do anything.
So Party Pants is about this woman who wakes up on this fateful morning. She wakes up on the wrong side of the baguette, as the poster says, and she is wrestling with her anxieties, insecurities, questioning her life, her marriage, and her future through the lens of never having been to Paris. And some of that is like wrapped into her having just become an empty nester, having lost her daughter to college and stuff. So on this one morning, God bless her husband, is on the receiving end of this. She kind of takes it there. Like, it is a full meltdown. And on top of all that, these pair of pants don't fit her anymore. Right?
And he goes, I think it's the pants.
And she is basing everything around these stupid pair of pants. And I can remember the reason I even came up with this concept. I was in the gym one day and I had this pair of pants here at home that I bought not that long ago, like a year ago, maybe. But something happens with the body between 53 and 54. I will tell you that. And they just didn't fit exactly the same. And I'm in the gym and I'm watching this trainer train someone, and this trainer lady, like the most perfect legs and butt. And I was just like, oh my God. So I'm getting competitive in my head, doing the press or whatever.
As many of us that I do that too.
Meanwhile, like my knee is killing me because, I've had like 2 knee surgeries, a partial replacement, like all the shit that comes, it's all come for everybody. And
so it's coming for you too if you're listening. It's coming.
Yeah. That HRT patch, like the knee surgery, like everything is just coming. It's just waiting. And the second you're walking across the street looking cute in your outfit, it's just gonna pop and knock you in the head.
It's so true though. Sometimes I wake up and I'm like, what's that? Why am I hurting there? What happened? I need my heating pad.
And now you get it when you remember when your parents used to stand up or do something and they were like, doing it up. Oh God. Oof. Oof. And I'm the only one in the Pilates class, like breathing so loudly and so hard. I'm like, oh, it just hurts after a while. It just hurts. So I'm like getting super competitive in my head over this woman who could be my daughter, basically, like training someone. She's not even doing the exercise. It's just like training someone. And I'm just like lost in my head. And I came home and I looked at those pants and I was like, I'll just be damned. So I wrote that story. Like, it didn't even take me that long because it's like, it's in all of us, basically. The only difference I have is, I don't have a child that has gone off to college or something, but I certainly could empathize with Fiona, and especially because she had not been to Paris, so she's just feeling very much like, why have we not been there? Is this my life? Like, don't you want something more? Like, all this stuff. It resolves itself nicely at the end, but yeah. So it's a fun movie that I think a lot of us Gen Xers would enjoy.
But so how long did it take you to not just write it, but the whole process?
In the world of movie making, it actually didn't take a super long period of time. I had already been a screenwriter and a novelist prior to doing this. I published 2 novels, and 2 of my TV pilots already placed as semifinals in this TV pilot contest. So I'm no stranger to the page, so to speak. So when I wrote it, this must have been late spring, I guess. I didn't have a super fast...
Wait, late spring of 2025?
Oh, yeah.
This year? Oh my goodness. Okay, I was thinking like last year. Okay, not this year. Okay.
No. I came off from the gym and I just all right.
You saw those pants and you were like, yeah, this is it.
And I had to just give up those pants. I just took them to consignment. I was like, I'm grateful for the time I had in those pants. And long live some 40-year-old who will wear them. So I wrote it And then I had sent it off to a couple people to produce it and direct it, people that I knew. And I basically got tired of waiting to hear back
Hmm.
from people. We all know ghosting is real and stuff. And, I just like, I, what the hell? One person got back to me. He never officially said he couldn't do it, but he just never really quite responded after.
It wasn't really like a yes, I'm in. Like, well, let's do it.
Yeah, after a few weeks, because he had said he wanted to read it, and then he just like didn't or something. So I followed up with him a few times, and I didn't hear back. And then with someone else I know, that she didn't really follow back up. So and then I was on my trip to Europe. I was in France for a couple weeks this past summer, and I just told myself, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do it myself. I'm just gonna do it myself. Like, it's not rocket science. I wrote it. I obviously know the story. I already have the actor in mind, and I'd already shared the script with him. So I just started looking for a crew from France, made these postings on these different production sites that I'm a part of, and found a crew and decided to shoot it. And I had a very short window of time when I could shoot it. I mean, it's a short, so we shot it in 2 days. We definitely probably could have used twice that amount of time, 5-6 days to shoot it, but we got it in because we needed to.
Wait, Trina, how long is a typical short film?
Uh Short.
Okay.
But this is 11 minutes, 20 seconds. I get the point across and don't need to waste time with extra scene.
Yeah, no, we like efficiency and the point. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'm going to make it short. People's attention spans are so short. I'm going to make short and sweet, which is what I did. So I came home from France. We shot it here in my apartment because when I wrote it, I envisioned it to be being acted out here in my place. So we did it here, got the crew and stuff. And yeah, that was pretty much it. And now the premiere is on this Saturday.
Yeah, 11.
Yep, on the 11th. And I'm so excited and sending it out to festivals and things like that because it actually turned out much better than I initially anticipated.
Really?
This is my first foray into this, the filmmaking, directing, producing, writing, like the whole thing. And it was a lot of work. Like, I will never, ever take for granted anything this ever. I go see a film, watch a TV show, how many people are behind the scenes of this whole thing. Obviously, I knew that because I worked for Matt and I watch film credits and stuff. It's a way to honor all the people who work on a set, a billion people to make something. And, because this was indie film and I financed it, we had a good crew, but we could have used more resources. But thank God the people that I had were very talented and, we got it done. So I have a complete new appreciation for producers, directors, like everybody, like audio, like everybody, trying to think of like, okay, what note do I give myself for this one for the next take? And, the note for the actor and then cutting and, whatever. But my DP, she helped me. She co-directed with me because there were just some things I could not do as the actress in it. She took on some of that responsibility, but it was great. It was a lot of fun and it was a fantastic learning experience. And it just felt like it was what I was supposed to be doing. Like, like all the stuff that I've done. I'd gone to UCLA and earned my feature film writing certificate. I got that last year. And I formed my production company 3 years ago now. When I was 51, I had started taking film screenwriting classes while I was on a mental health break from work. I had a job at a big tech company for a while, and I was in a toxic environment.
Hold on. How was that? How was that compared to toxic, but the toxic, yes, and completely different from anything you did.
Yeah. I mean, I've always had day jobs that I've always been doing kind of my stuff in the background. But on that particular instance, I was in this like really kind of shit situation with this manager I had, and I had this headache that wouldn't go away for like, it was about 5 days. And I realized that I'd only been having that particular type of headache since I'd been working there. And I'd been having it more over the year that I'd been under that manager on that team. So I go to the doctor and she's like, I'm really concerned, like this headache isn't going away. Like my normal tips and tricks like had not worked. It was a tension headache. And for me, that manifests as like over the eye or back of the neck or something. It's just like this constant contraction that I have no control over and like pain. And when I had started getting those headaches, I would normally take, was it Excedrin, tension headache, the caffeine pills or whatever it was, and they would normally work, but nothing was working this time. Like that's how bad it was for me. And so my doctor's like, "Oh, I'm going to send you to the ER," because I thought, Lord Jesus, is my brain bleeding? Like,
Yes, you're thinking worst case scenario.
yeah, I'm like, cancer? Like, what is going on? Is it like trying to tell me something else? It's like happening in my body. So I'm in the ER like all day. I'm just like sobbing because I'm like so tense. I'm so stressed, like the whole thing all day. I do all these tests, and the ER doc, this woman, she said, "Jobs don't love you back. You're not going back to work. Take a break." And I was like, okay. So she wrote me a note, and I did not go back. It took 3 months because we got 3 months of full pay. So I was like, I didn't go back.
Yes.
So it was during that time, like after I caught up on sleep and like my nervous system calmed down, that I started doing these screenwriting classes because my novel, Colette's Caleb, I always knew that that would make a good series or something. And I wanted to learn how to write it as a screenplay. So I started taking these classes. And I was doing all these other things like in that space. And I formed my production company, Floor 51 Productions, because basically to serve as a reminder to myself and other women that you can change the course of your life at any time. That I was making this concerted effort at 51 to switch the direction of my life. And it started for me by taking these classes and telling stories in a way that I had not seen them being told before. So yeah. So then last November, almost a year now, when I lost my job at said tech company after 6.5 years, it was terrifying at first, of course, because it's destabilizing. Like no matter how toxic, it's a paycheck and it's equity and it's insurance, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it wasn't my life. And I had started setting a path for myself at 51 when that happened on my mental health break. And I said to myself, I'm never going to let a job make me feel like that job on that team was making me feel. It's just, what is the point of that? Not doing that again. So when I got to this point, I had just lost my dog and then a job like a week or 2 weeks later. And then I had to have that second knee surgery on the same.
Oh, when it rains, it pours. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was still in a lot of pain. So they had to go in and do whatever. And all this happened within a few weeks of each other. So December, January was just filled with grief, pain, physical recovery, like all these things. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to use this as an opportunity. The first set of my life has looked like this. I don't necessarily want to look like that again. Like I'm going to forge a new path forward. So I said, I'm going to take like this, as I'm calling a creative gap year, and just like really put myself fully into all my creative endeavors and just balls to the wall. Just do it. Because when else do you have an opportunity to step out from something to do this? I was very fortunate. I got severance and had unemployment and stuff. And, but I was like applying for jobs as well. But it's a bloodbath out there, as everybody knows. And, I'd send in resumes. They just go into a dark hole. You don't hear from people or you get ghosted by recruiters and stuff. So I just took it all as a sign that that is not the direction that I should be going and that I should be continuing to follow like my curiosity and do these things that I want to do. So I signed up for like all these acting classes to sharpen up because so much of my time before had been spent in this day job. And I started doing my French classes again. Like I'd studied French in college, but it goes away. I was like, okay, let me get back to speed on that. And I just started putting myself in the places where I knew I needed to be. So I went to the South by Southwest Film Festival in Austin earlier, with April, I guess it was. And I was approached by a producer there about acting in a TV series that his wife is writing. So I just recently read the pilot. They finished the pilot and shared it with me. That would not have happened if I was at home or his calendar or something. I went to Europe for the summer. I spent, I guess, a week in Italy and then a few weeks in France doing my French language courses and met all these people in the creative industries there, where I feel like I have a very good chance of like selling my stories because they take place in Europe. A lot of them, just all these different things. And so when it came time for party pants, I was ready for it. I had done all the work. I'd laid all this foundation for everything. And so
For years. I mean, this isn't people, this is not overnight. This is
yeah,
for years, and every experience, for every opportunity you got, for every opportunity that you didn't get, right? All of it led to you saying, this is what I need to do.
yeah. Thank God I went to the gym that day. I saw that late.
But here's the thing, Trinnette. Here's what I so appreciate about this story, and especially this film, and the reason why you made it and what led to you making it is that you continued to show up and take a chance on yourself, right? And I think those are two things that people have a very hard time doing. I'm going to show up and be where I feel like I need to be, and I'm going to allow whatever happens to happen. I'm going to go in with no high expectations, but I'm going to go in and be open to whatever happens. And then second is, I'm feeling this pull to do this thing. I'm going to take a chance on myself and do it. Those two things, very hard people to do.
And I had to make a decision earlier this summer to just like basically quadruple down on myself because there were definitely times where I almost started panicking. My therapist was like, don't panic, don't panic. I only have so much money. And doing all these things, these are massive investments that I made in myself. But what do I want to do? Like put all my energy back into an organization that doesn't value me as a human and like what I have to bring to an organization. Like I am not trying to build somebody else's house for them anymore. I'm always trying to build mine at this point. So I just had to tell myself, okay, I'm launching this brand, which is myself, and it is a fraction of what it would cost if I were launching, let's say, a lipstick or handbag or something at a big company. Like those budgets are massive. I'm in no way like that. So I had to like change my thinking around the financial aspect of this stuff because there's a lot of investment. But I said, you know, if I do this work now, this time next year is going to look a lot different than this time last year. Party Pants is the beginning of that. It is going to serve as this calling card of like what I can do across all these things as an actor, as a producer, as a writer. I've written probably 5 screenplays at this point, and I'm like working on another one. And between that and the opportunity that will come to pass that happened in Austin about being in the series, there is just this goodness that is right on the other side. And you just have to have so much faith that it's coming. As my friend says, she's like, Trinnette, your money's in transit. Don't worry, it's in transit.
It's on the way.
Yeah, it's on the way. So just this whole thing of having this unwavering like belief and faith in myself, you know, it probably came from being rejected so much as a young model. Because if I would have gotten success straight away, like I wanted, like I thought I deserved, I don't know if I would have really appreciated it, what would have really come out of that. But because I've always had to work so hard, you know, I catch a break here. Was it 1 step forward, 2 steps back? Like that's been my whole life and stuff. So now, like, when something comes to me, which it is, like, I'm ready for it. Like, I have built the foundation. I've set up my life. I'm older now. I'll kind of know what to do with everything.
Oh, Jeanette.
I have the conversations now with people. Also.
Yeah, and you also know, for instance, when others aren't going to be on board, you're like, okay, well, I'm gonna do it myself. Like, I'm not waiting for you anymore. You know, because people say, oh, you know, always reach out, ask people for support, to help you. You know people, so reach out to your network. And sometimes this is true. Sometimes people don't show up for you, and that's fine. But that doesn't mean that you stop.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm at the point now, like, if I reach out to somebody for something and I don't hear back within a week, I just move on.
Yes.
Move on. I don't have time to waste. There's somebody else out there who will say yes or who will get back to me. And if they don't, I just do it. Like, and I think that's another piece where people get stuck is they get stuck on waiting for that person to come in and present everything to them on a nice plate. Okay, here you go. Here's your next step. Here's your future. Like that sort of thing. It doesn't happen that way.
No. And then even if you follow up and they don't get a response, it's like moving on. I'm going to do it a different way. You know, sometimes people say, well, I can't do that. I'm like, well, what can you do then? What is the next step you take? I get that didn't work out. So what else can you do? There's always something else.
Always.
And it sounds like you're super resourceful, right? And so I think that's part of all of your success. Man, I look forward to watching this film. I look forward to all these things. So Trinnette, tell us where people can find you and how they can watch the film. How can they watch Cardi Pants?
So they can find me on my website, TrinnetteFaint.com, Triette. F as in Frank, AINT. I always have to say that, or people will say say paint. So
It's Faint. How is that?
yes. But you would be surprised.
No, I get it. The name front, I get that.
The film will be on YouTube and some other channels as well. I'm still sorting out where those will be. By the time this airs, it will all be on my website. So
Awesome.
you can see where to go and grab it. So yeah, it's going to be the calling card.
Yes.
That's thank goodness, girl. Okay.
I'm so excited for you. And for those who are listening, you can also right now, you can check out Trinnette's books on her website. You can check out her whole story on the website. Her website has a lot of great information on it. Her creative projects are on there. And that's how you can reach out to her as well if you want to get in touch. Trinnette, thank you so much. I've loved this conversation. I feel like I think everybody is creative. I think everyone is a creator and is creative inside. But I love when I meet people who really express themselves fully and to acknowledge the journey is so non-linear, so non-linear. And it can be hard and then beautiful all at the same time. And so I've loved that this conversation highlights that about you and shows people, like you said, that you can do anything at any time. Like you can really decide, I want to do that now, and I'm going to follow my curiosity and do that now. And you don't have to hold yourself back, and that you can, it really does start with this belief in you and in who you are and what you have to offer, and just the belief that this is going to be what you're meant to do. Even if it doesn't all work out the way that you think it might, it's going to work out in a different way. And I feel like your story is proof of that. And you have like so much more story to go. Like this is just, you're entering this other chapter. This is great.
Yes, that is very true. Thank you for saying that. And people, they could just do small things. Like it doesn't have to be this massive overhaul. Like everybody doesn't have to lose their job, lose their dog, and have knee surgery and decide to do something different and big.
Correct.
Keep your job, figure it out. Like you can do things within the confines of your work, but you just have to start. Like whatever it is you want to do, like whatever that small step is, just take it. And you will see that after you've done all these teeny little small steps, that you have made a massive leap. And you'll look back and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm here now. I've done all this stuff. And then you just get the confidence to take another bigger step and so on and so forth. And it's all waiting for you. And there's no reason to be afraid. Like nothing's going to kill you.
No, the worst case scenario, even if it does happen, you'll figure it out.
Yeah. It's in all of us. So don't be afraid of listening to that voice that is there telling you to go pursue something else because you don't want to have regrets. I just lost a friend of mine. She was 49 and her life is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I'm just getting started and I'm 54. So don't live with regrets.
Did you hear that? As you're driving to work, don't live with regret. Trinnette, thank you so much for joining.
This is great.